Good morning. Welcome back to Unraveled Game Thoughts. I'm a little out of breath. I'm sorry. I just went and gave my dog a little exercise and uh, did a little in between breaks work to get out of my office and try to break up the monotony of the day. But here I am breaking up the monotony some more, talking about board games. And if you are watching this video, then probably you have at least visited my Patreon. This is my goal this year is to put on videos here that are free, but get people that might come to the page. This is where I rant about board games. I'm going to try to put more content on here over the next year or so, and my Ko-Fi page as well, and kind of do that without I'm not that I don't want, I'd love support for the channel. I would love to have some Patreons. That'd be great. If one day I can spend the vast majority of my day doing board game content, making videos, I would love that. That'd be fantastic. But I've got a day job like probably most of you do. And so I do board game content whenever I can. That being said, you came for my top 81 and 90, and I've adjusted my list slightly. So I'm going to do two things in this video. One, I'm going to go over the first 91 to 100, because even if you watch my previous video, I've changed these games slightly. I went through my entire matrix of ratings and changed a whole lot of things and moved them around. And I did that after I'd already put out the 91 to 100 video. So I'm going to report those adjustments, and then I'll get into the 81 to 90s. On 91 to 100, starting with 100, I had Unfathomable, and I have now switched that to The Crew is now my number 100 game. Number 99, I had Call to Adventure. It is now Legacy of You. I had Green Team Wins at 98. It is now Things and Rings. I had Yido at 97. It is now Ra. I had Blood on the Clock Tower at 96, and it is now Le Havre Inland Port. I had Concordia at 95, which is now Dune Imperium Uprising. I had Ohanami at 94, and it's now Dwellings of Elder Vale. I had Nemo's War at 93, and now I have Ohanami at 93. Dominant Species was 92. Jaipur is now my number 92. And my number 91 was Founders of Gloomhaven, which is now Far Away. So that's the update. You may hear some of those games that I named again, simply because some of them have moved up, some of them have moved off the list, in which case you won't hear them again. But that's kind of how that is gone. So I'm not going to tell you what my previous games were when we go into 81 to 90, but just know just about everything on the entire list changed at least a little bit. It just moved a slot or two. There's a few games that kind of stayed where they were and didn't move much, especially toward the top. Those games don't move a ton, but everything else kind of shifted slightly one way or another, and with a few things shifting way off or on. So number 90, let's jump into it. Number 90 is Taverns of Tiefenthal. Taverns of Tiefenthal is essentially a deck builder. That is the primary thing that you're doing in the game, is your deck building. My particular copy has the Open Doors expansion as well, which adds a little bit of flavor to the deck building experience. It's not a vastly different game with the expansion, but you have a board that has areas that could be upgraded, and each upgrade will accentuate how you're able to draft cards and what you're able to do with those cards. So when you play a card, it's either going to be something that allows you to change one of your dice, or allows you to add an extra seat so you can have more patrons in your tavern, or it allows you to move around the board and gain bonuses, or get more shots that you can gain bonuses with. It's gonna either give you bonuses, or it's gonna give you more cards, or it's gonna give you more space to put your cards. So in all of those things, as you're drawing cards and putting them in our tableau, you're going to either gain what is it, beer, or gold, or money. And with those three things, you can buy cards or patrons of different types. And everything you do based on the patron type and things like that will trigger more bonuses. So lots of bonus triggering, but largely a deck builder. And the game is pretty short. I'd say probably if I play with Becky, something like 45 minutes to play a whole game if we're just playing straight through with no interruptions. It's not long. Even if you're playing 3 to 4 players, I'd say hour to maybe an hour and a half. Hour and a half would probably be on the long end. And you're going to start by drafting dice. You're going to roll some dice. You may have unlocked some dice via your bonuses. Those are just your dice. So you would roll them with all the dice, but they would be in your player color and they would stay kind of off to the side. And then you have some general dice that you're rolling. You're going to put them on a coaster, which is a nice flavor to the game, making it feel like a tavern coaster. And it looks like it's got some drink spilled on it. So it's got a nice, like, what do you call it, a nuance to the art in the game. And you're going to pick a dice and put it down near you. You can put it where you're going to play it. You don't have to. In theory, you just put it by your player, and then you hand that coaster with the other 3 dice to the next player. They draft, so forth and so on, until everyone has 4 dice. Why are you drafting dice? Well, dice are how you're going to trigger different patrons in your tavern, and each patron you trigger gives you something. So if you've unlocked things or flipped tiles on your tableau, then you can unlock more things. And otherwise, you're triggering patrons in some way. They're going to give you money, cards, bonuses, some kind of thing. Sometimes they give you bonuses for playing them, or for taking them. Sometimes they give you bonuses when you put a dice on them. So depends on how you're trying to use those dice. You really want to use all your dice. There are a few places on your tableau where you can kind of put any dice, but generally speaking, you want to have specific dice for specific actions in order to get more out of your tableau. So a little bit of efficiency puzzle, but in a large part, you're adding things to your deck of cards. I don't think it's as maybe well developed or balanced as, say, Dominion or Clank or something of that nature, where you have a little more control over the deck building. Not that you don't have control in this game, but you are rolling dice and you're drafting the dice. So there's a little bit of the combination of what are the dice that are drafted. Even if I, like, maybe the first round I can draft the very best dice that works really great, but it might be that I'm past a ton of dice that end up not being helpful at all to me. And so when you upgrade, you're hoping you get dice that you can use in those upgrades, generally speaking. But sometimes it doesn't work out that way, and there's some mitigation in the game. So it just varies. It's probably not a game I would expect to see in, say, Las Vegas for board game World Series or something like that. It seems like there's a little bit too much luck for that to be a significant game for something like that. But it's a good game. It's fun to play. It's light. It's not one that I think about really becoming a tradable game. Some games I play a few times and I'm like, I'll probably trade that though. This one has enough of a unique mechanical system that I feel like it falls into a game that has some staying power. And it's on my top 100. I think it's been here for the last 2 to 3 years. It'll probably stay here. Number 89 is Ready, Set, Bet. Okay. First of all, party game. Definitely a party game. If you've never played this game, there's a main board And to simplify it, each spot on the board is a type of bet that you can make on one of the horses that are racing in the game. So you have blue horses, which are like the outside horses, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 11, 12, 9, 10. They're kind of the more edge winners. And then you have, I think it's like orange or red horses. So there's a different color horse that's like in the, so one of each, and then there's another different color horse, or rather, yeah, two of each, one on either end of the spectrum. And there's like another different kind of horse, and then you have the 7 horse, which is like right in the middle. And I can't, I'm not going to be able to describe off the top of my head like how the dice are mitigated to make it a little even across the horses. 7 horse is still you're most likely to kind of get to the end of the track, but it's mitigated. I can't remember how it's mitigated. You don't know who's going to win, and you can't just bet on the 7 horse and hope that that's going to be where you make all your money. But all those bets are like, if I bet on the 12 horse to win, the 11-12 horse, I'm probably getting more money if that horse wins or places, depending on what kind of bet I made. And it's all in real time. So you're either using an app or you have a player who's calling the race. That's one of my favorite things to do, is call the race as the dice are rolled. You're rolling 2 dice, horses are moving, and it's fun to just make stuff up and call it as you go. But you can use an app as well, and your bets are in real time. So you're watching these horses race, and you're betting. You get like 3 bets unless you have some bonus stuff, and it's like, if you don't take, like, once you take a betting spot, that's taken. No one else can take that spot. So if I see that, say the 5 horse, man, it looks like this 5 horse is going to win, and I place my bet on 4-1 odds that the 5 horses is going to win, and you have different betting tokens worth different amounts, and I bet my highest token on that, well, no one else can take that bet. So now other people are going to have to bet on different things. So it's like, you want to bet when you kind of think you know which horse might pull it out, but you also don't wait too long, because there's a red line on the track, and once 3 of the horses have passed that red line, then all the bets are over. You can't place bets unless you have a bonus unlocked via some of the bonus cards in the game, which give different players sort of like either extra betting chips or some other nuances to the game that change the rules slightly and make it more interesting. But it's a fun game to play. There's usually lots of yelling involved. I will say it probably is better at a 5-player count, at least minimally. And then it goes up to, I think, something like 8 players. The more players you have, the more fun it is. So I wouldn't usually bring it out for like a 2-3 player game. I think you can play it as low as 3, but it's just like there are better party games for that player count than you would want to do with Ready Set Bet. But I will say, if you have 8 people who are going to be into something new or different, we're coming up on the holiday season. I actually bought this a couple of years ago specifically for the purpose of introducing it to my family, who most of them aren't really board gamers, I would say, but they like they love play code names or some other games that are a little bit more light. I thought they might like this, and they did. They loved it. It hadn't hit for everybody. There's been a few family members that played it, and they're just kind of like, it's not their thing. But it is pretty fun, and it does get everybody yelling and screaming and rooting for a horse, and usually play 3 races to see who ends up with the most money at the end of the game. Great game for a party game. All right, number 88 is Chakra. Chakra is a light game for 1 to 4 player, or 2 to 4 players. And I think I typically have played it at 2, but it can play at other player counts. And every player gets a board, and then there's a bag of, I'm going to call them gemstones of varying colors. And on the player board, you have like a little, we'll call it a circle, of each of the different colors that you can potentially get in the bag. So you're drawing gemstones out. Well, the gemstones are actually drawn out of the bag and randomly placed on this the kind of common board. And so on your turn, you're either picking gemstones from one of the they're like in bundles of three. So you might be picking three. You can never pick two of the same color unless it's black, which is considered like your negative energy. And if there's black, you have to take all the black. You can pick one gemstone from a particular place if you want, but if there's like, say there were three yellows in the same spot, you would only be able to take one in that case because you can't have two colored gems grabbing from the same place. So ideally what you want to get is three gems of different colors that you need. Now once you get those gems, you're putting them on your board. You're either putting them at the very top where you'll have to use these tokens to trigger moving them up and down your board, and you're trying to align those colors. So on the yellow spot on your board, you're trying to get all three yellow gems in that spot. And what that does, it's an aligned chakra. So then once you have all three yellows in that spot, things can move through that spot and they don't even count that spot. It's like it doesn't exist. So if you get several spots in a row that have all aligned colors, you can move stuff up and down. And the game ends when any one player has 5 chakras aligned. When that happens, game ends and you score points. So you don't know at the beginning of the game what each aligned chakra is going to score. That's part of the game is when you have to take back all your action tokens. These are tokens that you're moving in order to move your gems up and down on your board, because on a given turn you're either gaining gems or you're moving gems, but you're not doing both. And so there's a little bit of a puzzle there trying to figure that out, what's the most efficient way to do it. But when you pull back your action tokens, you're also going to get to look over what is a particular color worth. So you're kind of trying to, if I get one that's worth 4 points for being aligned, I kind of want to get that one aligned, but if it's going to cost me a whole lot of extra actions to get it, then I might want to potentially wait until later. Number 87. Trismegistus. This is, again, I can't remember the, I think it's Daniel Ticini who created this game. And I can't see, part of me is like, I don't really like the art of this game, and it's kind of hard to get to the table. Not because I don't want to play it, but just because I get other players to play it. But it's a fun game. And I've thought about trading it, but I don't. At the end of the day, I kind of feel like it's one of those games that I'm always going to have this bug in the back of my head after a while. I want to play that game again. So it's it remains on my top 100 as a game that I just can't move it off too much because I do like it and feel drawn to it. It's got a pretty good solo mode. You're essentially an alchemist, and you're transmuting elements into different elements. And as you do that, you're triggering, you're doing that in order to get certain elements in certain places. And then you're going to spend those elements to gain artifacts, and those artifacts can help you trigger other things. And what makes the game pretty exciting is that with the different areas of the game that you can trigger bonuses, you can really build towards some pretty epic turns. I would say in one game, you're maybe 1 to 2 epic turns where you're like, I've triggered this, and that triggers this, and that triggers this, and that triggers these 3 things, and these 3 things, and that triggers, and that triggers. And you get you feel like you just do this really incredible, awesome turn. Ultimately, you're trying to score points off of publications, and there's these tracks that you move up similar to Teotihuacan or something like that. I don't think this is as good as Teotihuacan, but it's got some elements of a lot of different Euro style games. So, and I think because it sits in that, it feels a little like alchemy. Excuse me. there's a little bit of an alchemy feel to it that comes through in the theme, and I think I think it's fun. It's fun at the end of the day. The dice are pretty fun because it's like a little bit of a dice drafting mechanic where you're rolling all these dice, and when you're trying to, you're gonna like draft dice, and when you draft a dice, what that dice can do for you is based on the number of other symbols available in the giant pool of dice that everybody is pulling from to take their actions. It's just a neat, that's a neat mechanic in the game, because so if I go in there and I'm like, I take that first dice and I get, so I have this symbol and there's a symbol 5 times in that bowl, so it is worth a lot and a very powerful action. That's kind of fun, but now that action gets less powerful, so it's like trying to make the best use of the resources that are available. And then it's each round, those resources go down until you eventually re-roll the dice and kind of see what the next round's going to offer. And there's only 3 rounds in the game, so I would say it's not a long game, but I think it's probably a 2-hour game, to be honest. So that's not really long, but definitely a medium weight game for sure. That's Trismegistus. It's a good one, interesting. Not one that I hear about a whole lot, so that might be semi-unique for if you've never heard of that game. I do have a video, I think, in my past archives. When I say archives, like if you go to Unraveled Game Thoughts, you could find this video on Trismegistus, I think. Look it up, see what you think, and definitely let me know if you are having a hard time finding it. I use a website called Board Game Oracle, and that's usually when I type in games. It gives me a list of the places that have it, and it also tells me a little bit of some of the, like, how available is it, how hard is it to find, because if I get 10 websites and they're all sold out, I know that could be a hard one to find. However, that list of vendors on Board Game Oracle is not exhaustive. It's quite a few, but it doesn't mean it's going to include everybody everywhere. There still are some other websites that I might go to. Boarding School Games is a good example. I don't ever see them show up on Board Game Oracle, but I do go to Boarding School Games to find games, so something to think about. Okay, moving right along. Number 86 is Cooper Island. Can't get rid of this game. It sits in this weird place in my brain where it just got unique. I wouldn't say unique. All the mechanics are mechanics that are from other games, but I think the one that really strikes me as really interesting is you have this tile placement element where you're stacking the tiles, and the amount of resource you get is based on how many tiles are stacked up on your island. And so there's a little bit of a puzzle with that, not to mention you have to unlock certain pieces of the island to even have room to stack more tiles. It's really interesting. And all of that is to use the resources to kind of get your ships. You have 2 different ships that can go around the island clockwise and counterclockwise. And I have not unlocked the puzzle. I feel like there probably is a way to play this game that's really well, and I've only played it a handful of times, some solo and once with multiplayer. I want to play it probably 9 or 10 more times multiplayer at least before I fully know, like, how much do I really like this game. This game is one that could go up or could just fall off my top 100 and end up getting traded because, oh, okay, it's just a, it's some neat mechanisms woven together, but it's just one that you get shut out too easily if you don't get the right tiles or don't do the right thing. I feel like there's more to it than that, though, and I do like the mechanics involved, so I'd like to explore it more. As such, it remains in my my number 86. I have it rated at a 7.74, and I think it's a fantastically lovely game to play, and has decent art, and is a little bit different than a lot of other games out there. So it fits a unique area. Moving right along, number 85 is Cryptid. I don't know if I'd say well known, but I feel like this is a fairly, like, people know about this game. If you don't know about Cryptid, what Cryptid is sort of a sleuthing game. You can play up to 5 players, and each player has a rule that they know about where the cryptid might be on the main board. So there's a main board. There are land types. I think like 5 different land types. Mountain, plains, water, blah, blah, blah. There's like different, 5 of them. And then there's some shapes placed on different parts of the board that are representing like a, I don't know, like a tower and a pyramid or something like that. But they're shapes like a circle and a triangle and something else. And a few other things that kind of make each board unique. And basically you're going to, because at the beginning of the game, you're going to get a scenario. It's going to tell you where to put everything on the board. And then each player has a rule that says the cryptid is or is not in a place that is X, Y, or Z. And it's related to where the land types and the shapes are on the board. And as you go around, you're basically trying to, find a hex on the board, point to it, and make somebody have to either put some kind of a token down. And if you go around the player board and no one else puts a token down, you found the cryptid, because that's where it could be, assuming it follows your rule too, because you can only pick a place where the cryptid could be according to your rule, and then everybody else has to prove basically that's wrong based on their rule. And so you're sort of eliminating areas on the board and narrowing down where the cryptid is. First one to find it wins the game. Really cool group game. Little bit of a co-op game where you have to work together, but you're ultimately trying to get there before other players. Number 84 is 2 games combined into one, Dominant Species Marine. Even though they play slightly differently, they're close enough. I just kind of group them together. I've actually not played Dominant Species Marine yet. I own it. It's on my shelf, but I have not gotten it to the table. I've played Dominant Species once, maybe twice, and it's a good game. I like it. I kind of feel like it probably is going to end up falling in this realm for a long time, because it's one of those games that's like, it has sort of that getting dudes on a map, getting in people's way mechanics that I don't like as much, but I respect the game and how it functions and how the theme fits in with those mechanics. And so those things combined kind of keep it in this area for me. It's still fun. I still enjoy it. I don't dislike the game. It's just probably not one I'm pushing to get to the table as much, but I do enjoy playing it. And there are just some games that, even if they're not in my play style, the play style itself is not way outside my realm of comfort, and the theme fits the play style well enough that I'm like, okay, it slips on here. Number 83, moving right along, is a game. I don't own it. I've never played it. Wade, why is it on your top 100? Well, I've watched playthroughs. I've read the rules. It is coming in Kickstarter, so I don't own it. I have pre-ordered it, and that's Unconscious Mind. It is a good, it looks like it could be a good game. The jury is out. I got it rated at a 7.76. Yeah, I know. All right, you're not supposed to rate games until you play them. I had to come up with some way to rank stuff. So that, reading the rules and watching a few playthroughs and imagining, okay, what do I think about this game if I think about playing through the mechanics that I see on screen? This is my guesstimation. What I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, because as a Kickstarter, I wouldn't say it's cheap. It's not real expensive. This wasn't over $100, but it was not a $60 game either, because the Kickstarter comes with a few bells and whistles and stuff, and so they charge a little bit more. Plus, you got the shipping and all that. So it's not a cheap game, but I'm hoping that my conservative rating is actually lower than I think it'll land. I'm hoping it lands in the 8s. But for right now, because I don't know, and I tend to kind of nerf the score a little bit, there's just a lot that makes me wonder, like, how much am I really going to like this? A lot of it's for the theme. I am a licensed counselor, and so I like the idea of a Freudian unconscious mind theme. That sounds fun. That sounds intriguing. I love the idea of a board game made around it. We'll see. We'll see how it plays. More to come. Moving right along, number 82 is Apex Theropod. Probably wouldn't own this game if I hadn't been offered a good deal on it. Happened to be in town at a game store, out of my town, but in another town, and a guy said, "Yeah, I'd sell this to you for $50." And I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a shot." I like dinosaurs. I'm kind of a sucker for dinosaur games. I wasn't really sure about this one. I didn't know a ton about it, but I was like, I'll try it. And I would say 75% of my enjoyment, and maybe reason why this is in my top 100, is the art and the quality of components is really high. Now, that being said, the game's not terrible. I just have to caveat that those things do factor in, and the gameplay is not bad. There are some pieces of the gameplay that I'm like, I don't know about it. And I think it's designed initially to be more of a solo. There's a lot of different dinosaurs you can play as, or I guess is it as, or you can, Dex. You're playing as that dinosaur to some degree. A little bit of a dominant species vibe where you're playing as a dinosaur and trying to be successful as that dinosaur, but you're gaining hunt points and hunting other dinosaurs, and you're ultimately trying to beat kind of a boss dinosaur that will be, even in multiplayer, you're going to have your own boss dinosaur that you're going after. So even multiplayer is a little bit of a multiplayer solitaire, but there's some board things you might be competing over, so that can factor in. But in the rule book, solo is first in the rule book, and then multiplayer is later. So I think it's designed more to be a solo game and then multiplayer. But I wouldn't classify it as strictly a solo game because it does have the multiplayer experience as an option. Apex Theropod. Moving along, last one today, number 81 is Halls of Hegra, which I can't remember if this is the only solo-only game on my top 100. I know Nemo's War was on there. It may still be, but I kind of think Nemo's War moved down slightly. Still a great game. And Legacy of You, I can't remember if that is on here. Did I say in the first round that it was? Oh, yeah, it's number 99. So Legacy of You is definitely on here. And Halls of Hegra could be my highest rated solo. Don't hold me to that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it might be my highest rated solo. I don't have a lot of solo games only on here, but Halls of Hegra is fun. Kind of a war game, worker placement. It's not as much a dudes on a map game, even though there are dudes on a map. It's more of a worker placement action selection. And it feels a little bit like tower defense because you're in an almost impossible situation. It's not like you're going to beat the bad guys. I think there's some kind of you win the game if you can do that. But really, you can win the game if you survive and surrender with enough men left. And so it's a very a war of attrition kind of game where you're like, how can I set myself up for the longest survival and get to the end and not just be completely annihilated. But it's a fun game. I love the way the mechanics work together and the worker placement and all that. And I definitely prefer to play with other people, so that's probably why this is lower on the list. Honestly, if I was just more happy as a solo player, this would probably be much higher because it does have a lot of mechanics that I like anyway. But because I enjoy having people at the table with me, playing games with me, then solo games just in general get a little bit of a downtick because if it's solo only and it's the only way to play it, then it's just not going to be as high. Although I do think you could take Halls of Hegra, play with somebody, and collectively make decisions about what you want to do in a game, like you're both in the bunker together, making those decisions. What do you think we should do here? And that could still be just as fun. So it's not like you couldn't play this a little co-op-y. It's just not designed as a co-op. That is my 81 to 90. Thanks for watching this video from Unraveled Game Thoughts. Until next time, I'll talk to you then.